You are listening to Peak One Sports.
Ashton with the score dates, Tony breaking down headlines, Landon bringing the hot takes. Get your sports fix one time. The Leadoff Morning Show, getting you ready to go for your sports weekend. Time to hit the flow. Wake up to the buzz. Pod hits like a glove. Feel that adrenaline rush. No
Happy Saturday and welcome to the Leadoff on the Peak One Sports Network, brought to you by Apogee Grafix, taking your vision to new heights. Go to apogeegrafix.com and use promo code PEAK1 for 10% off your order. I'm Ashton Nix, ready to get you ready for your sports weekend. Thank you for listening. However you are tuning in, we're going to talk some Rangers, some Cowboys training camp, Snoop Dogg at the Olympics. But first, say goodbye to unruly behavior and hello to a well-mannered pup. The Dapper Dog Academy stands out as a top-notch canine training institute located in Cleburne and serving the DFW Metroplex. You can contact Korri and the Dapper Dog Academy on Facebook or call and schedule a consultation today. All the info is in the description box below. Again, thank you for listening. Now let's bring in the other part of the Leadoff Morning Show. Tony, what is going on?
What's going on?
Not much. A lot of sports finally getting into the mix now.
I think we got through the dog days of summer, and now we're there with the Olympics.
Talking as little baseball as possible. Not intentionally.
And baseball's just starting to heat up now, so that's the fun part.
Yeah, like I said, we can get into the Rangers here in a minute, what we think they should do at the trade deadline. Obviously, even though it's just a few days away, a lot can happen, and a lot can happen with the Rangers. I mean, a week ago we were talking about them being sellers. They were 6 games out or something, and pretty much you thought the season was over, and turn around a week later they're 2.5 games back of first place, and maybe looking at let's
buyers,
just go ahead and jump in
sellers.
there now. Yeah, last night they do lose to Toronto 6-5, breaking their 5-game win streak. Houston and Seattle did win, so that drops them now back to 3.5 games at AL West. I think you got a lot of help with the Angels sweeping Seattle and Oakland taking 2 of 3 from Houston.
Mm-hmm.
And this happens. I mean, the Rangers lose, Houston and Seattle win. That's not going to be the last time that happens this year. You just hope that in the past the Rangers would sweep. I think Toronto, they swept in a 4-game series and then went right after and got swept by the Guardians. So I think in this situation, you don't want to take 1 step forward and 2 steps back.
Yeah.
I think it's very important for you to take 2 out of 3 in Toronto, because Toronto's kind of reeling now. They've officially become sellers, and I think this is a good opportunity. And Seattle's playing. I think they're playing. Are they playing Oakland? No, they're playing Chicago. I knew they were playing one of the bad teams. The one the Rangers just beat up on, and hopefully they don't sweep. But I mean, you're not really worried about Seattle at this point because you're just a couple of games behind them. Houston's the one in first place. You're 3.5 games down. They did win yesterday, but they're playing the Dodgers. So you think the Dodgers could probably come back and hopefully take that series, at least one. I mean, if you're talking about taking 2 of 3 or losing 2 of 3, as long as the team you're chasing isn't just consider like sweeping, I think you're okay. Like if Houston takes 2 of 3, Seattle takes 2 of 3, and the Rangers just win one more in the series, I think you're okay. You just can't be in the situation where you're getting swept. And
there's still a lot of baseball to be played.
Yeah,
and anything can happen when you get to the end of the season. I mean, we're just going down the back half. You get to the trade deadline. I mean, the injury bug could still hit. These late season injuries come up.
Yeah.
Guys hit, they just need days off. I wouldn't. Now's not the time to freak out. I think if you are the Rangers, it is time to go ahead and buy. Add another left-handed bat to this, an outfielder. Let's keep these bats going. Let's stay hot, and see if we can't sneak into the playoffs just one more time.
Yeah, because they do have a lot of help coming back. You're talking about Josh Young just called up to Double-A to do a rehab assignment. There's saying that Evan Carter's just about a week behind him. You have everyone saying good things about DeGrom, that he's about to start ready to start facing batters, and you want to be in a situation where you can, when he comes back, that he's ready, that you don't have to force him back, but you want to be. I mean, being in the mix of things is one thing, but being close enough where you want to kind of get desperate. Like if you're mid-September, about 4 or 5 games back, that's definitely within striking distance. You don't want to say, well, let's throw DeGrom in there to try to make a playoff run. If you're 2 games back, that's completely different.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of games to be played, but you kind of have to think of this, zoom in a little bit because of the, I don't know what Chris Young is thinking. I don't know that you get swept by Toronto and, let's say somebody gets hurt. I don't know that you're like, okay, well, now we're sellers. I think there's good ways to sell where you're not necessarily giving up even on this year, but you're definitely preparing for the future. You have a lot of starting pitching that you could use in trade deals. Yeah. To get, I think you had mentioned an outfielder. Chris Young did say that they'd like to get a left-handed hitting outfielder. You could also use some relief pitching there. I think you just try to stick with it, stay with the storm until you get these reinforcements back. I don't know about being big time buyers. I don't even know that there's a name out there where you could just say, yeah, we're giving the farm for him.
Yeah, I mean, when you had the big deal, Seattle picked up a resurrect.
Man, Tampa is just only selling just these last couple of days. It's finally dropped off the edge because nothing was happening for a while. I think that shows what other GMs know about the Rangers, because the Rangers are the big team that can sell. Yeah. And that's why nothing's really happened. There is kind of alluding to the Rangers. If the Rangers are selling, then we know this is going to be a good a good trade deadline period, because they have all the pieces. Mm-hmm. They have the expiring contracts that you can sell. That's why I'm thinking you're either going to buy small or sell small, or kind of a mix of both, depending. Like we said, you could give away a starting pitcher in a deal to get a reliever or an outfielder that you need for this year, or you could do it I think that's what's going to happen if things don't go well for the Rangers for the next 4 or 5 days. Maybe they do something like that, like, hey, we're going to, Evaldi's on an expiring contract, get something done with him. He's probably going to opt out of his player deal, his player option. You could give that to a team who's going, the Yankees or maybe the Red Sox, somebody who plans, looks like they're going to be in the playoffs, because obviously last year he was a great playoff starting pitcher for you. On the flip side, I don't know that means you're necessarily giving up at all or waving the white flag, but that is something that if you end up making the playoffs, that's one less piece you have, but you can get something.
To go into it deeper for people that wouldn't understand that is, you're moving a guy that you're probably not going to have come back next season anyways. So you're trying to at least get something back for that. For a guy that or you feel like you're not going to get a deal worked out and signed, you're just trying to, get something in return than just letting him walk for nothing.
Darvish from, 2016, 2017. You got Willie Calhoun for him, which at the time looked like a pretty good deal, but
it was a good deal. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a bad deal looking at it now, because you were going to lose Darvish anyways. You weren't going to sign him for what he wanted.
And you got some production out of Willie Calhoun for a short amount of time.
You throw it out there, take the chance. You either get nothing for him, or you get something and a chance. And that's really when you're a seller, that's all you're doing is throwing it out there for a chance, because more likely than not, whatever you get sent, that's why they'll give you 4 or 5 prospects, because the chances are one of them hitting. will be better. But yeah, you got to take, you got to look at it, zoom out and look at it from, hey, you're probably not getting anything for him. So that's what Chris Young has to decipher and figure out is, do you change, like just Evaldi for an example, do you take the chance that, hey, we could really use him down the stretch and in the playoffs, but at the same time, this is a young team. We have a really good opportunity for the next 3, 4, 5 years, assuming, because they've done a really good job drafting and figure out how some of their farm system works. You have a good opportunity where instead of going for it now, which I can understand because, I mean, even with injury, I don't know that the Rangers have played great baseball. They play really good baseball. Take out the injuries, maybe they're a couple of games over 500. Maybe they're in first place. But when you look at it, yeah, we could win the division, make the playoffs. That's what you want. Just get into the tournament. But really, you're like, hey, if we just take a step back next year, we could really contend. Because I think it's a stretch to say that the Rangers could contend for a World Series this year. We have to see how Josh Young looks when he comes back, because he wasn't having a great year when he left. Can DeGrom even come back this year? I think it's very possible that things work out where, hey, you can make some noise. On the flip side, look at the Rangers last year. Nobody thought they were contending. They backed into the playoffs, barely even made it. Yeah. And they went and won the World Series. All right, moving on to the Cowboys. I know it's bold to lead with the Rangers and then move to the Cowboys, but Dallas Cowboys show up to training camp this week, obviously without CD Lamb. He's waiting on a new contract. On Wednesday night on the sports page, we talked about, I'd like to get your thoughts on this. We gave Dak, Micah, and CD, who, not that Micah's really complaining about a contract right now. He's there, he's working. It's probably coming, but in those three, priority-wise, who do you sign first? Who do you make sure you keep? Given not just who's the best player, but given the situation, like CD's holding out, so you have to do something. Dak, is going to.
That's the direction I go. Is to make sure to get a deal done with CD because he is holding out. I know how hard it is to win without a good quarterback. And I know Dak gets a lot of hate, but Dak's a good quarterback. I think he is a replaceable piece. CD's he comes out of the backfield. He can play in the slot, the wide out. He plays all over. I mean, he is a generational type talent. It's hard to find a receiver like that you're going to have long term. I know it's hard to find a good quarterback, but I really just feel like, if Dak ends up walking, you can't get a deal done with him, then, maybe you do go into somewhat of a rebuild. We have to remember, we still have Trey Lance on this roster. We haven't seen Trey Lance since we made this trade, in a live game. I really want to see something out of Trey Lance this season, see if he's got it. Was he a first-round draft pick for the Niners?
3.
Yeah,
number 3 pick.
The potential is there. Just because it didn't work out in San Fran doesn't mean that it doesn't work here. And he had some injuries he dealt with there as well. But, I'm not selling on Dak right now for Trey Lance. But you do have to remember, you have a first-round draft pick quarterback behind him.
Yeah, I'm always a big proponent of like, there was a reason he was a top pick. I know some guys are busts, but he has talent. The issue the thing you have to think about, I agree. Quarterback is everything. You just have to have at least a competent quarterback. I think Dak is good enough to lead, to be the quarterback of this team and win a championship under the right pieces. Obviously, it's not. I talked about it Wednesday that you could say Cowboys will never win with Dak, but you said the same thing with Romo and I don't think it's necessarily a quarterback issue. I think it's a system-wide issue with the Cowboys. But I think Dak's good enough if he's not the main guy to lead the Cowboys. He's not going to be a Mahomes or a Brady, but he's better than a lot of quarterbacks that have won a Super Bowl. the issue with Dak and even with Trey Lance is if you don't get a deal done with Dak, he's going to have $40 million dead cap space next year. You have Trey Lance, but Trey Lance's contract is expiring as well, so you have to re-sign him. So you're either going into, I mean, not that you couldn't, I mean, you're going to sign Trey Lance for a lot less than $40 million, you would think, outside of him just you letting him start for whatever reason, whatever you see in him. Dak get hurt, I don't know, but if you feel really confident with him going into 2025 that you let Dak walk, it's probably because you saw something, and then he's going to want good money. I mean, even if he's just like, yeah, I want 30 million or something like that, which seems like nothing now.
Yeah.
For quarterback, then you're saying, okay, well, with dead money, you're paying a quarterback 70 million. With re-signing and restructuring Dak, you can keep pushing that money off. That's probably what's going to happen. That's probably what I guess I would like to happen, just because I feel like the Cowboys are kind of in a window right now, because you have to pay CD, which I think is going to get done this week or early next week. The Cowboys have no history of showing that they're going to hold out on a receiver or a player. You saw it with Zeke. They're going to cave. That's why we're in this situation. They're going to give CD a new contract. I hope sooner than later, just so he can get in and not miss a beat going into the next season, because he's arguably the best receiver in the league.
Yeah.
If you just look at his trajectory, you just have to see him consistently put up top 3 receiving numbers. So I'm not worried about Lamb. I think they're going to sign him. Micah, both Lamb and Micah Parsons want to be the top paid non-quarterback in the NFL, which I don't see how you do that with both. Out of the two, I'd rather keep Parsons, but obviously that's not what we're doing this year. You're going to re-sign CeeDee Lamb next year, and we'll see what happens with Parsons the next year. I just don't want to go into that quarterback purgatory and not know what in between Troy Aikman and Tony Romo, where you're just throwing. I mean, of course, the Cowboys aren't spending first-round picks on quarterbacks. They've lucked out on 2. I mean, you can call Romo and Dak franchise quarterbacks. They've been very successful, just not in the playoffs. They both consistently are between like the 7th and 10th best quarterback. What I like to say, like that's where they're at, and occasionally will look like an MVP caliber.
You hit it on the head with the system. I mean, these guys are both, Romo and Dak, both very competent quarterbacks. I mean, arguably, you could say Dak has more tangibles than maybe any quarterback in the league. He's big, he's strong, he can run, he's got a big arm. I mean, accuracy, maybe he's struggled with that a little bit in the past. I think when he can let it fly, he can hit his target. But arguably, he has all the tangibles you want in a quarterback. Could it be a system? Could he go somewhere else and win a championship under a different system, different ownership? You can't imagine it's easy to play under Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, you have a microscope on you constantly. Your season, all season, off season, in season. I think some guys can rise to that challenge and some can't. Since Troy Aikman, Cowboys have gone through a lot of quarterbacks, and some have been very, very talented and had some success. So I can't imagine that it's just a fluke that they can't find quarterbacks. I think they're finding plenty of talent.
Yeah. And I'd be the same way if Dak goes to another. I mean, he'd still have to have the right system in place. I don't think he excels and becomes this MVP caliber quarterback, which I know he's had a couple of years where he's been MVP caliber. He's great at putting up big stats, and I think I call him an above average, a little more than a bus driver. He's not a bus driver quarterback, but he's not, like I said, Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady or Lamar Jackson in that sense. He's a dual threat quarterback who can win at being one of the guys, but not the guy.
But let me stop you there for just a second. You're talking about comparing him to 3 of the greatest possibly of all time.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
You have 27, 26, 28 other quarterbacks that are not that, but they're competing for championships. Love, you have there in Green Bay. You have I can't think of his name now. San Fran's quarterback.
Purdy.
Purdy.
Brock
Yeah.
Purdy,
I mean,
yeah.
I think between those guys, Dak Prescott is more talented than both of those quarterbacks.
For sure. And I agree. And I mean, we've seen Trent Dilfer win a Super Bowl. I mean, you could see there's a lot of quarterbacks where I know when Tom Brady wins it every other year and Patrick Mahomes wins it. I don't think that you put the right team around Dak, Dak's going to go win 3 of the next 4 Super Bowls, because that just doesn't happen very often. It's very rare that happens. And we just happen, to see it more recently with seeing Mahomes and Brady.
Right.
And Brady actually kind of do it a couple of times. But Dak is, when he's not ranked in the top 10 preseason quarter, like I think I saw someone rank him 15th, which I think you're basing that off one playoff game, or last year's playoff game, obviously, and he's had a lot of issues in the playoffs. But he finished second in MVP voting last year, and then just has a terrible playoff game, and then he moves to 15th. I don't agree. I think he's better than Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's in a great situation. You put Dak on the 49ers, you put any quarterback on the 49ers, they're going to excel. I'm not saying they go and win the Super Bowl. I'm not saying Brock Purdy's an issue. Throw Dak in there. I think they probably are very comparable. But you forget that they went they lost 4 games in a row. They played terribly in instances. You just look at the big picture. I mean, you look at the Eagles, Jalen Hurts is nothing compared to Dak. He's had some good games where he can run, but last year, not even. Even when the Eagles were winning, he wasn't having great games, and then they just fell off a cliff. Dak Prescott's a top 10 quarterback. Now, he's had issues in the playoffs. I don't know. I can't even – the Cowboys are so odd that we can't even say, okay, this is why it's a system-wide issue. I know you've alluded to in the past, you can go on tours of the Star where the Cowboys practice in their facilities, and there's guys in there working out and practicing. It's that puts you in a different mode. It's for the Star. You want players to want to come play for the Star and be like, hey, they always mention in interviews, hey, the Star's going to take care of you. Hey, we're playing, but I think that puts you maybe not even intentionally, or even, what it's doing to you, but it's kind of putting you on that pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
Where whatever that does to you kind of takes the hunger out of you. I don't even know. I don't even want to say, because it's obviously not true. I mean, it's obviously a thing where you go talk to somebody. Cowboys are working their asses off and playing hard. It may be an intangible thing or something you can't even put down and put as a statistic of what their issue is. But it's hard to believe that the Cowboys luck out with getting Tony Romo. I say luck out by not spending any draft resources,
finding a diamond in the rough.
And you get Tony Romo. You get arguably the best quarterback in the draft in Dak Prescott. Hindsight's 2020, I know, but you redraft that. I bet you Dak Prescott goes top 5, regardless. Yes, Tony Romo struggled in the playoffs. Dak Prescott struggles in the playoffs. They both put up really good numbers in the regular season. Compete for, they're kind of in that area of competing for an MVP. You're getting good coaches, Bill Parcells, who pretty much rebuilt this team to the modern Cowboys. Even as boring as Jason Garrett is, who's had no success as a coach anywhere else, who just kind of flamed out in New York. And then Mike McCarthy, who's a really good coach, who led this team to 3 straight 12-win seasons and probably another double-digit win season when he started if Dak doesn't break his ankle. All of these, you have all the talent. You have you can say what you want about the coaches. They're not getting the top-notch coaches. They're getting coaches that will agree with Jerry. I get that. But they're very talented coaches in a sense. And you're still having the same issue. It's been going on 30 years, and you're telling me Romo's not good enough to make an NFC championship? Dak's not good enough to make an NFC championship? They have to answer for what they've done. I'm not taking the blame off of them at all. But there's something bigger happening here.
There's always been the rumors that Jerry Jones, and in fun, Jerry Jones sold his soul to the devil. He made a deal of, give us the last Super Bowl they won. And do you truly think, and this is a serious question, do you think we see the Cowboys win a Super Bowl while Jerry Jones is alive?
I mean, chances are you don't. I mean, statistically, you pick any team and they're not likely to win the Super Bowl ever. I mean, you throw the Chiefs out there, I think they're favorites and they're probably like 18% chance or something like that to win the Super Bowl. How old is he? Like
Jerry Jones is definitely a guy. If they were to win the Super Bowl, say they won it last year or this year or next year or in 5 years, he's a guy that will let you know about it.
Yeah.
He'll tell you, see, I told you so. I told you so. You just needed to give us a chance. I told you so. Rightfully so. He supports his team. He believes he's the decision maker. Of course he's going to support that. He's going to be behind his guy. He's making the decisions 100%. Like, can we just admit finally Jerry Jones does not need to be making personnel decisions. Just sign checks and shut the fuck up.
He's definitely, like, a lot of people say he doesn't care, which I don't think he does. He definitely does care. He would love to win another Super Bowl. I think as long as his team's making money and relevant, he's okay with it. I don't think you just say, oh, he doesn't care about winning. He definitely does care about winning. But but
not more than making money.
Exactly. If the team was irrelevant, he might go out. Like Stephen Jones is in there to kind of keep Jerry level-headed. Like if Stephen Jones wasn't in there making any kind of decision, the Cowboys would have drafted Johnny Manziel instead of Zach Martin. I think Jerry wanted Johnny Manziel.
And we saw how that worked out.
Like, and thank God that's maybe the best thing, only great thing Stephen Jones may have done for this franchise.
Yeah.
But I say cheap is the wrong word, but not wanting to pay players, because the Cowboys have never like been the top, I don't say top 10. I know not top 5 or 6 team in salary, even before the salary cap. I mean, Jerry Jones was one of the proponents of the salary cap. I think it's because you don't want to have to just go out and pay all your players as much, he says we're all in, and then he kind of backs up. He's like, well, Trayvon Diggs is coming back, which is not nothing. Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see how he is after an ACL injury, but that you can equate that to signing a good player, but you can't say all in and then be like, well, this is what I meant. Like, no, that's not. You sign Eric Kendricks, and that's not all in. A decent signing
on the end of it, at the end of his career, though.
Yeah. I mean,
you're not talking about a guy that I would say is still in his prime. I mean, not that he doesn't have anything left in the tank, but
Netflix is making a documentary about Jerry Jones, or is it a docu? It's a docu-series, isn't it?
I believe so.
I think there's like actors playing. I'm not sure, but anyways, they're doing that, and Jerry Jones' team has not been to an NFC Championship game in coming on 30 years now. That like he's doing exact like I would guess rather have that than be a fan of the Jaguars, who have been to a couple AFC Championship games recently but aren't relevant. I mean, I'm glad the Cowboys are relevant. That makes our job easier, where if I'm not to pick on the Jaguars, but if we were in Jacksonville trying to do this and wanting to be local, and it's hard to talk about the Jaguars. Like this entire conversation, I'm going to make short clips out of it, and we're going to get 50 to 100 comments, a few thousand views, just because we're talking about the Cowboys, and they're going to tell us how big of idiots we are or whatever. And it's easy. That's why the dog days of summer, as you alluded to, you hear stupid stories about the Cowboys that are like, why are we even talking? It's because it's the Cowboys, and because it draws. That is a positive. I'm fine with that. If you're not thinking in the back of your head, this is probably why the Cowboys are, I mean, they're winning,
just enough to stay relevant.
I wouldn't even call them mediocre anymore. I think we got in the mode of calling them that because they went 8-8 for 3 straight seasons. But they're one of the top 5 regular season top 5-6 winningest teams in the last 5-6 years. They're very relevant. But
this current roster, as it sets, before you lose any players after this season, which you most likely will, this roster as it sets might be one of the greatest rosters to never win a Super Bowl in the history.
Yeah, not even in just Cowboys history. It's very talented.
In NFL history, yeah.
The Cowboys are great at getting talent.
This is the most talented team in the NFL right now.
They might be
and we're talking about possibly, like, we're just saying, hey, you know what? Maybe you sneak your way into the playoffs. Maybe you, like,
there are people calling them, saying they're going to go 8-9, which probably isn't crazy. Whatever, you know, I think they're probably going to win 10, 11 games, but you can see it go either way. I think people are just so distraught after that. Not distraught, are just so, they just have this illusion after Dak played that, or how they played that playoff game. I think they're going to be fine. I mean,
and we hate on Dak a lot. How many points did the Packers put up in that game? Dak doesn't play defense.
Yeah. I mean, you can say that pick six obviously was on him, but other than that, I mean,
he didn't protect the ball perfectly, but this defense was suspect last year. I mean, with all the talent they had, this defense was suspect.
Yeah, and it can go one of either ways with a new defensive coordinator. It can go really well, and I suspect it will go well because you're going to see some new things, and teams aren't going to know what to, you know, a lot to do. With Zimmer's new defense, maybe if you are familiar with Zimmer's defense, you can kind of know what's coming. But I think the Cowboys are going to be excited. Their defense is going to be exciting this year, being the first year with a new coordinator, very different than Dan Quinn, and obviously having a lot of talent. I think top-heavy talent with a lot of superstars, and then a lot of, we'll see, you know, Eric Kendricks, like I said, was a good signing because he's older, but he's talented, experienced in a position of need. That if that, I mean, on its own is a pretty good signing, but as the main signing for the Dallas Cowboys in their offseason is pretty bad. Let's jump back to Dak, because we talked about going the final year of his contract, talking about are they going to sign him, whatever. It's gotten a lot more expensive to sign him. I mean, he did mention in an interview the other day that he could possibly see himself playing for a new team in 2025. That's something we've never heard him say before. I think it might be a negotiating tactic, because I know before he's like, I want to play for the Cowboys for the rest of my career, and I can just think like his agent's like, maybe you shouldn't say that because it makes it sound like you're going to take a deal. But now he could saying he could play for a new team, and you know Jerry doesn't like that. Jerry Jones basically convinced Romo to retire just so he could be the only Cowboys be his only team.
Yeah.
And now when Jerry loves Troy Aikman, Tony Romo, Daryl Johnson being announcers. I think Daryl Johnson only played for the Cowboys, right?
I think so.
Aikman for sure did. So you have these announcers. They're former Cowboys. There's nothing you can say about it. They've only played for the Cowboys. Now, if you don't know if Dak's going to be your guy, if you're Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, that's fine. Don't sign him. But if you're going to sign him, that's what I said, his last contract, you're letting guys, you keep resetting the quarterback market where $60 million might not be enough now. Where we were like, don't sign Dak for $60 million. Well, Jordan Love signs a 4-year, $220 million deal, $75 million guaranteed, or excuse me, $75 million signing bonus and $155 million guaranteed. Roughly 55, was the math come to? About 50 to 55 million a year, which I know his cap hit's not going to be that much year one, but you kind of do the math. And Tua and the Dolphins agreed to reach a 4-year, $212.4 million deal, 167 guaranteed, about $53 million a year. This is how it works. You get good quarterbacks above average who you think like Jordan Love hasn't done anything before, like maybe week 5 of last year.
Yeah,
he looked really bad the first few weeks, and all of a sudden they go on a run. They beat the Cowboys in extraordinary fashion. Looks good in the playoffs, and he's now getting paid fit. That I don't know that that's more ridiculous than Daniel Jones getting paid 40, because Daniel Jones, you're not the guy. Jordan Love could, obviously he was a first-round pick. You haven't seen a ton of him. And
speaking of Daniel Jones, of watching Hard Knocks, the Giants are not in on Daniel Jones behind closed doors. Like if I'm Daniel, I'm watching that and I'm thinking, shit, these guys. They are not in on me. They're looking for someone. I mean, they're, for God's sakes, they were trying to sign Tyrod Taylor because they didn't trust.
Yeah. And again, if you're not in on Dak, don't sign Dak. See what you're
what the numbers you're throwing out.
mean.
Dak absolutely commands $60 million a year.
For sure now. I mean, if the Cowboys don't re-sign him, he goes to free agency. I mean, just look what Kirk Cousins got. I think Dak's better than Kirk Cousins. It's very comparable to Kirk Cousins. As he puts up the numbers, he's had MVP type seasons, and he doesn't produce in the playoffs. That who's not giving Dak $70 million next year? How many more quarterbacks get re-signed between now and next offseason? Dak's number went up from you could probably get him 55 million. It's 60 million, I think, base. That's where it goes from here. Just goes up. This is how it works. This is what I explained last year before. I mean, you saw Burrow's going to sign probably this year, and man, I'm blanking. Who's the Texans quarterback?
Oh, now that you asked me,
I can't think of it. I want to say Trout for a second. I'm like, it's obviously not. But there are talks like he might hold out next season if he has a good year. And I get it from the Cowboys' perspective. You don't want to re-sign your quarterback to a new contract after a career year.
Yeah.
Dan Boyer has alluded to that as well on the sports page, that he's at the highs of high. I mean, even after the playoff game. He either has another career year, which you would love, and then you sign him, like, which would probably be 75 million at that point, or he comes down a little bit and you're like, okay, but I don't think it's going to be like that. If Dak has a bad year, I don't think he goes and negotiates with the Cowboys and it's done. At that point, why wouldn't you say, hey, I'm going to go talk to new teams. We'll come back and give you a chance to match it or whatever. At that point, you're not signing Dak. There's no way, because somebody's going to give him stupid money.
Yeah.
All right. We've been saying it for months. Don't bet with your gut. Check out Betalytics and get help making your picks. Betalytics uses AI algorithms to run the numbers and make the most accurate picks possible. Right now, they have added Euro Soccer. It's live on their website, among other sports, coming up with NFL. And you can use promo code PEAK1 for 25% off when you sign up today. Go to betalytics.com to start betting smarter. Tip, get bang for your buck. You can sign up for their annual package rather than their monthly, because it's just for the first month. But you want 25% off the entire year, go ahead and do that. All right, we're going to get into some Olympics here. This is going to be fun talking Olympics the next few months, because you were talking about getting a gold medal update, which you'll get here in a minute, because a lot has happened overnight, because the Olympics in Paris, what are they, 6-7 hours ahead of us?
Mm-hmm.
A lot's, they're right in the middle of, competing right now. So
Yeah.
It's going to be fun actually talking while things are happening. But a little talking opening ceremonies. Leading up to the opening ceremony, Snoop Dogg carried the Olympic torch around Paris on Friday. Kind of odd that when I saw that. I mean, he's obviously a superstar. That's great. It's a little funny, like that's just kind of random. But in an interview this week, Snoop said, I look at this as a prestigious honor and something I truly respect. I would never have dreamed of anything like this. Also saying, I'm going to be on my best behavior, which I'm not sure what that means. I think Snoop's always on his best, outside of smoking weed or tie. Like, I don't know the laws there or anything like that. I'm sure he's that's what he's alluding to. I'm going to be on my best athleticism, which I did see him jogging. I'm sure he's not a big athlete in that sense, but I'll be able to breathe slow, to walk fast, and hold a torch with a smile on my face, because I realize how prestigious this event is. And like I said, he was jogging around, running around, carrying the torch, and that would just be cool. Like I'm sure there are maybe hundreds of people involved in doing this up until this actual ceremony. That would be kind of an honor. That'd be awesome to carry the torch. I'm not sure how Snoop Dogg got into this. I don't know. Honestly, I didn't even know carrying the torch before the actual ceremony was a big thing. So, like I said, I don't know how many people are involved in this, but you know, the Paris officials were like, "Hey,
I mean, they were carrying the torch for like 5 hours.
yeah,
Before the
that's what
ceremony,
I kind of
and
didn't
they
know
made a big
it was a
spectacle of
thing."
it.
Yeah,
This is an
exactly.
unpopular opinion. I mean, is it too much? I mean,
That's
we're
what I'm
for
about
God's
to get
sakes,
into.
we're
That's
watching the
what
flags in the pouring down rain. These athletes are miserably getting drenched. Yes, they have smiles on their faces. Yes, they're, but I mean, we're sitting there watching them on boats with
so
flags getting
yeah.
poured on. Like,
So the opening
I
ceremonies,
get the
I
like
thought
the.
were yeah,
Go ahead.
I thought they were really good. I thought Paris did a good job. Obviously, you can't control the rain, but if you know, to me, I think it
This is
rains a
like
lot
the
in
first
Paris.
time, the first time it's rained in the opening ceremony since like 1952.
Yeah. And there were a lot of mixed opinions on this. And I say mixed not because some people liked it, some people hated it. I think it's so like you're kind of in the middle, you're like, is this too much? And I'm kind of like I thought they were good. There are some opinions way on both sides of the spectrum here. I think for the most part, what I saw, people did enjoy them. A few said it was the best opening ceremony they had ever seen. I mean, when you get into Olympics that are, I know every 2 years, but the Summer Olympics every 4 years, you kind of forget. You're kind of like, oh, even with the Super Bowl, you're kind of like get hyped up more than you know you should. It's crazy, but take to the perspective of the host city. How often does a city get? I don't even know if Paris. I guess Paris has hosted it before, but like Los Angeles is hosting the next Summer Olympics. It's the first time since the 80s since Los Angeles hosted, maybe the 90s. So you're talking about big time. I mean, forget small cities that sometimes I've never heard of a city that's hosting the Olympics, but when you get Paris, they're going to make a big spectacle of it. And I like how you said, "Is this too much?" Because they were criticized saying they're trying too hard. Somebody said this was the first ever Olympics opening ceremony held outside of a stadium, and it was a disaster. I don't know about a disaster, but I understand. I understand what they're saying. They tried too much. They're like, hey, we're going to take it outside of the stadium. Because they wanted to use their river, and there was a lot of criticisms because it's not very hygienic. They were talking about having swimming events like triathlon.
Well, they had to treat it because the E. coli levels were so high.
Yeah, and that's kind of ridiculous. But I mean, I know that river is historically known for being unhygienic, like from the 15 and 1600s, which I guess everything back then was, to our standards, was very unhygienic. That's why it had so many diseases. But or was I? Somebody said the rain ruined it, which I can get. I'm not going to knock the officials unless you're like in Seattle or somewhere. I want to say it rains a lot in Paris. I have no statistics to back that up. That's just my imagination of, or what I imagine Paris to be like. But it's hard to knock them for the weather. Like, they're planning this years in advance. They're not going to say, okay, here's our backup plan.
DFW gets knocked for the weather on a Super Bowl.
That's true. And I know February traditionally the ice month for DFW, but most years, like during the Super Bowl, I keep thinking about that. I'm like, man, last Super Bowl,
we have a lot of times it's
right
nice.
now. Yeah, exactly. The Super Bowl week, I thought, man, dude, it's 70 degrees. Could this not have been the And that's probably why DFW hasn't gotten another Super Bowl. But seriously, yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say, without the rain, I thought it still would have been pretty cool. I understand the risk you're taking, but at the same time, they put it inside their stadium and it rains. What are you gonna do? I know a lot of it would probably be in a soccer main stadium, being in Europe, and I know a lot of those have those partial roofs. So I mean, maybe it makes it a little better, but I'm not going to knock them for the rain, because being outside of a stadium, it probably wasn't going to be inside a dome stadium, I wouldn't think. Now, like, if Dallas hosted it, opening ceremonies would probably be in Cowboy Stadium, and the roof would have been closed anyways, because it would have been 95 to 100 degrees anyway. Knowing Dallas's luck, it would have been like 120 degrees that week, or the opening week. And another
one more thing on that, like going to
spectacle.
Like talking about this, It is cool what they're doing. You saw like in Paris, like a lot of the statues and things that were being presented, and those will be given to the city to have throughout the city as like a remembrance of, you know, what's cool is if anyone that's ever gone through Atlanta, like as bad as Atlanta is, Atlanta traffic, but you see so many symbolisms and torches and things of the Olympics they hosted. Like that is cool because when you go through there, you still see some of the monuments and things that were put together for that event. You know, just like what they'll do the same thing in Los Angeles. You know, you'll continue to add to that, so you get that still that sense of feel and you know that that feel with the Olympics there, which is cool.
It's something that residents will get to experience. Like I know a lot of them hate having the Olympics, not only just like the traffic, but there's a bunch of political deals too. Like they're spending money on things they you know.
Yeah.
We saw it like it was Brazil in the World Cup, or maybe it was the Olympics. I don't remember, but they were showing like shots of homeless poor people looking at like this monumental opening ceremonies or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, that kind of puts it in perspective. And then a lot of these cities that go all out, or I guess the countries go all out, but to go and host the Olympics, to when you're a third world country or a city that really isn't set up for this. I mean, that's why you pick Olympic City 4 or 6 years in advance so they can build all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then they're talking about like you see these abandoned stadiums, and like when the Olympics are in Los Angeles, I don't know that they build any stadiums. They got, I mean, our high school and college stadiums and facilities are up to par where you could still use those. So they're probably building hotels and infrastructure and stuff like that. But Paris, I'm sure, didn't have to build a lot of stadiums. Nothing, you know, nothing that they're going to not transform into like a apartment or something like that. Honestly, it's probably better if these global cities host the Olympics because of that reason. I think some of these other smaller, not necessarily countries, because I know China and Russia have them in smaller cities, but where they have to build that, like it's probably like I know there's still political issues with Los Angeles hosting the next Olympics because there is going to be funds shifted that should be helping people more, just so hey, we can host the Olympics and look cool and whatever, but not I mean, nothing comparison to third world countries and smaller cities. But before we get into like this Olympics, it's interesting. Like the next two Olympics, or not next two, but after the next Winter Olympics, you have back-to-back Los Angeles and Utah or Salt Lake City hosting that Summer and Winter Olympics. I don't know how many countries get to host two Olympics back-to-back like that.
Yeah, that is cool.
But yeah, let's jump into what you have on the Olympics medal count and whatnot.
Well, currently, just from overnight, we've had a couple of events that have awarded medals, and both were won by China, where they stack up a gold in diving and a gold in shooting.
That's funny. I mean, I'm not a huge Olympic nut or whatever. I definitely watch sports that I would never watch otherwise, but I have no reason to think they're not good at those sports. I don't know. That just doesn't stick out to me that China's good at diving and shooting. That's
so. Korea took silver in the shooting event.
Okay.
The U.S. took silver in the diving event.
Okay.
Great Britain took bronze in the diving event, and Kazakhstan took bronze in the shooting event. And when you say that, oh, I don't know if China's good. Like, I don't know why I think
China, South Korea, Kazakhstan, and shooting.
I don't know why do
China,
I know
America, Great Britain. Yeah,
like I think they would be okay. They would compete for a shooting event. I don't know why I think that. I just makes sense.
I mean, yeah, I guess that I mean, it's weird because it obviously, like, you go back to like the movie Cool Runnings and like, yeah, Jamaica bobsled team, I get that, but a lot of these countries like Kazakhstan, why wouldn't they be good at, like, there's a reason why there's like a lot of countries like they may send 1 or 2 Olympians, but they're like maybe not the most talented, but they're probably, you know, gonna overperform because this is everything to them. Not like American athletes, this isn't everything to them, but I think when you put it in perspective, it's on a whole nother level. Like Americans are treated like celebrities over here, especially after, like, even if they've not even been to the Olympics, if they're because we keep an eye on them, we know for the most part who's going to be good. But especially if this is like their second Olympics or whatever, you're already treated luxuriously over here. A lot of these guys, like in third world countries, not that Kazakhstan's a third world, like obviously at the top of my head, I don't know if it's a third world country or whatever. So no offense, but I know it's not like your top of the line country in power. That this is their entire lives, and so I think you know, like LeBron James, if they don't win gold, he's like, crap, I'm going to get criticized by the media and by fans. You know, that's it. Other countries, other athletes, it's like they are going for gold or going to medal, and this is going to be the best thing ever in their entire lives. Yeah. And like if you tell me, yeah, America won gold in this, yeah, maybe that's just my ignorant American mind, but I'm like, okay, I get, you know, you have the funds and the resources to train a lot of Americans outside of maybe soccer. I guess we're probably gonna, you couldn't surprise me if you say US won at this, or even Great Britain or Russia. Yeah, in my mind. What other events we have going on today?
Do you want some updates in basketball? You know, that's a long tournament.
No, I do, because I'm interested to see. I think US is going to just dominate. I know they've had issues in these exhibition games and these, you know, just these practice games where they've been really close, but you know, I think they're just going to put it together. I think they're just kind of coasting right now anyways.
So we've already had a completed game this morning. Australia beat Spain.
Okay.
Germany and Japan are playing right now. Germany's up 74-61.
Okay.
US has their first game tomorrow. They're going to play Serbia.
Okay.
And then there's
Joker. Is Joker Serbia?
Is he?
Yeah, Serbia. I don't know. He's one of
Wednesday. The US will play South Sudan.
Isn't that who they just barely beat?
Is it?
A few days ago? I think it was South Sudan.
And then they'll play Puerto Rico on Saturday, which, funny enough, you know, I don't know how Puerto Rico looks this year. Puerto Rico is kind of known for being good at basketball.
Yeah.
So that could be a good game next Saturday.
Puerto Rico, that's kind of weird that they have their own. Like I have no issue with them having their own Olympic team, but they're part of the U.S. I'm not getting that. No, yeah, Costa Rica is its own country. Puerto Rico is a territory. That's just odd to me. I have no problem with it. They, you know, I'm not saying no, they should be American or anything like that, but that's kind of weird. Like I don't understand, because I know England has that same deal, that in the Olympics it's Team Great Britain. In the World Cup, I think it's England.
Yeah.
Because you're sometimes adding Scotland and Ireland in there. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that's kind of odd how the Olympics, World Cup kind of differ from that, and Puerto Rico is. So if Puerto Rico does become the 51st state, and I'm just kind of meddling off here, that would kind of take away their whole Olympic team.
Yeah. Would.
Interesting to think
you are right about Joker.
Serbia.
That Serbia, he's on that team. You also have Bogdan Bogdanovic. That's a familiar name. And the other Nikola Jokovic.
Yeah. Jokovic is just a common name in Serbia, I guess.
I guess so.
So that, I mean, I'm sure the U.S. is favored. They're going to be favored in every game they play in, but that's going to be I think it's going to be a good, I don't know, test, but I think it's going to be a good early game for them.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, until you probably get to like the medal rounds of it.
Yeah.
I don't know how Joker, Joker really. I would guess he cares more in the Olympics than he does just in the regular season, because he obviously plays hard, but he just doesn't really care that much. He plays basketball because he's tall and good at basketball. He doesn't necessarily have the passion for it, but playing for his country, he might have an extra passion for it. I'm glad that Luka's not playing in the Olympics selfishly, because he, playing in the I guess the qualifiers, he was wincing a lot on that knee. So I'm like, just because I know he needed some minor surgery, it's like just lose and get in your off season and rest. Get ready for next season.
Another fun one today. You'll have Giannis playing Team Canada.
That's gonna be a good one because Canada is pretty.
Yeah, I mean they've got Dylan Brooks, R.J. Barrett,
Pretty good team. Yeah,
Jamal Murray, Dwight Powell.
Yeah, and the Canadian basketball team is not going to get in trouble because it's hard to fit a drone into an NBA arena. Shout out to Canada's women's soccer team.
I think, it's fun through the watching, especially like basketball is a big one because you get to see a lot of the athletes that you see in the NBA on their respective countries' teams. Yeah, it's a lot of fun just to see that dynamic.
Yeah, for sure. And right now, let's see what. Yeah. So, after this show and after this show airs, we'll have a lot of Olympics we can watch because they're not too far ahead of us hours wise. So, by the time of this recording, it'll probably be about 4 o'clock there, 4 or 5 o'clock in Paris. So, I enjoy when the Olympics are like in that Western Europe time because it's really like early morning, most stuff in the morning, and then like prime time is like 2 o'clock here, something like that. That's when you're going to get the really good matchups. Yeah, I think. And obviously now I don't have the time to watch the Olympics like I did when I remember sometime when I was in high school. But the Olympics were, I want to say, in Athens, and it was like right in the middle of the night is when they kind of started, and I watch rowing, I'd watch just all these random sports that I normally wouldn't even badminton, and just be like, okay, where's the US in this? Who's good at this? That's where I learned most of I'm not really that proficient in telling, like, you show me a flag, I could tell you the country, but I kind of have a decent idea of the popular ones. And that's where I learned a lot of it, because I would see a flag and I'm like, I'm really paying attention, like, what country is that? And then I would wait till they finished or whatever. Yeah, badminton, that's one, because I talked about on the sports page, Dan talked about starting what's the sport, the brooms and the ice. Gosh, I'm doing terrible this morning.
I don't know.
Curling.
Oh, curling.
And like the US doesn't pick players and make their team, they pick a team in curling. So we're like, hey, we should put a curling team together, because they just look like these middle-aged dudes that just got out of the their wife's van and went up and played curling or whatever. This is just like a weekend for them. And I said that you told me one year that was the same as I think you said badminton was the thing. It doesn't look that hard. Like, we could, like, it's obviously difficult, but like, if we practice enough, I think badminton, we could compete at an Olympic level. Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at the list of things today. You have table tennis later today. So it's 400 men's 400 meter freestyle. Yeah. Rugby, road cycling, gymnastics, beach volleyball.
And that's why the Summer Olympics are so much better than the Winter Olympics.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot more events, because I don't know off the top of my head how many events the Winter Olympics has, but the events in the Winter Olympics, it's all how fast can you get down the hill, how fast can you slide on this ice. It's like everything. It's like anything that doesn't have to do with snow or ice is a Summer Olympic sport.
Yeah.
There's just so much diversity, whereas it's just like, okay, skiing, jumping, figure skating stuff. Not that it's not entertaining, but it's like you can't get the diversity of sports as you like. I'll just go after I'm finished here. I'll probably go turn on the Summer Olympics. I have no clue what's going to be on it, but when I see it, I can probably name it, or if not, that'd be even more interesting if I don't know what it's called. Whereas it's like, okay, they're skiing downhill. It's just
I saw last night during the opening ceremonies, they have surfing, but it's not in Paris. It's in, oh man, where was it? Well,
yeah, it has to be like
it was somewhere else, but I guess it's a territory that Paris is. What is it? Oh, I can't even think of it now. But they weren't there. They were like remote. The teams the competitors that were going to be doing the surfing events.
Was it? It's not in the one in by Brazil in South America, right? It's not that one, is it?
I think it might.
It is been. Like
Uruguay or what's? I don't know why I want to.
No, yeah, but it's right next to it's next to Brazil. Gosh, I promise I'm better at geography than this. I love geography. I've just been terrible today. Off a few hours of sleep. Not New Guinea, that's a U.S. territory, but it's something that extends. But yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, it'd probably be better to surf. The conditions would be better there than in South America than they would be in the North Atlantic. Yeah. Which surfing has been one where I've never understood how the scoring works. And then I'm like, well, what if you're surfing and you don't get a good wave? And because I mean, you're just kind of going against the elements. You're waiting for you're trusting the weather to partake.
Tahiti.
Okay, no, I mean, I don't think that's anywhere near actual proper France.
French Polynesian island.
French Polynesia. That's what I was thinking. Not necessarily South America, but yeah, that French Polynesia is what I was. Is that in the Pacific?
Yeah. South
Pacific. Like the complete other side of the world.
Yeah.
They're going to have to.
They had them remote during the ceremony.
Yeah.
And they were cutting to
I guess that's true. You couldn't even be in because if it was like on, because obviously Paris is in the middle of the country, but if it was like on the coast, you could still be there for the opening ceremonies and then fly real quick to.
I mean, so where would they have for the LA for surfing? Would they have it there in LA, or would they go?
I would assume, you obviously could have it in LA and
go to Hawaii.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, you could have it in LA. Obviously, surfing is a big deal in LA, but I wouldn't, because we were talking about how, hey, we're gonna have the Olympic ceremonies out on a river and do all this. We want to show it off. Like if there's anywhere within like a couple 100-mile radius, or even in Hawaii, that's, let's say, a quick flight, but it's like what, a 6-7 hour flight. Where, hey, it's close, and it would be so much cooler to have the Olympics here, or the surfing event here. Why wouldn't you do that? So I definitely think that's a possibility, because I know how the city hosts the Olympics, but it's always all over the country. Yeah. It's all you want to show off the country. I want to say it was when it was the Sochi Olympics, they had events. I say it's not even that big a deal having it a few hours away when we're talking having it a half a world away in French Polynesian. Yeah, that's interesting. I can't say that's like not the best. Like, I'm not going to go, that doesn't count. I mean, it's still French. But if you think about it, France isn't known for surfing. I don't even know the conditions or how cold it probably might be in France right now, right off the coast. That makes sense, though, because that's stuff you don't think about. If surfing is in a sport, but you have, which I get, most countries don't get to host surfing. But if like Germany hosts the Olympics, where the hell are they going to surf?
Yeah,
they you have to have somewhere. And England, when they host the Olympics, you're probably not surfing right there in the English Channel. So yeah, a lot of good information there. It taught me something about the Olympics, stuff that seems obvious, but you don't even think about. All right. Well, I hope everybody enjoys watching the Olympics today. And for the next few weeks, we're going to try to cover it as much as we can to, the extent of our knowledge on the subject. But thank you for watching this episode of The Leadoff, however you're tuning in. Hit that like button if you like the show. If not, hit it twice. And don't forget to subscribe. With Tony, I'm Ashton. Have a great Saturday and a great weekend.
Have a great weekend, guys.
See you guys later.